The next speaker is here with us for the third time already. And we are very happy that she came again and prepared another lecture for us. Just short info in Czech. Pokud chcete poslouchat raději přednášku v češtině, simultánní překlad probíhá opatrně níže. And back to English. Please welcome on the stage one of our favorite speakers here at the conference, Marion Vrbicky.
Thanks for the introduction, but if you're making me any more nervous, I'm going to run away.
That was not what I wanted.
Is it working? Yeah, obviously. The mystery of the labyrinth, mythology and cultural interpretation. This title slide is showing Ariadne, one of the heroes of the story, on a terracotta skiphus that's around 5th century before Common Era. As with so many other things in the cultural heritage of Europe, the story of the labyrinth starts with the ancient Greeks. And like so much else that came down to us through the ages, it's full of mysteries, double meanings, and even misconceptions. Obviously, the Greek legend tells about the mythical quest of a hero, fated to kill the monster and win the princess. A topos probably as old as mankind, or at least as old as the Indo-European tribes. Next slide, darling. The monster is the Minotaur, half man, half bull, born of the unnatural union of a beautiful white bull and the queen Pasiphae, wife of King Minos of Crete. To punish Minos for not sacrificing the white bull to Poseidon as he promised, the gods struck the queen with madness. To house the dangerous half-breed, Minos had the grand artist and inventor Daedalus build a labyrinth from which it could not escape. Next slide. The hero is Theseus, the Athenian. Minos forced the Athenians to send him a tribute of 14 youths every 7 or 9 years, who were fed to the Minotaur. Theseus, son of the Athenian king, went voluntarily on the tribute ship to Crete to end Athens' shame and save his people's children. The princess is Ariadne, daughter of Minos and Pasiphae, granddaughter of the sun god Helios, the most holy, a possible translation of her name, the mistress of the labyrinth, to whom an amphora of honey was offered. She fell madly in love with Theseus and didn't want him to die, either slain by the beast or forever lost in the maze. Explaining who and what Ariadne and her mother Pasiphae were, and how and why they got integrated into Greek mythology would take too long and be a little off topic. Suffice to say that Ariadne, as mistress of the labyrinth, was most probably a pre-Greek Cretan goddess, and the labyrinth her dancing ground, as attested by Homer himself. Next slide, please. Ariadne gave Theseus a ball of string called a clue. This evolved into the modern English word clue, a hint for solving a problem, also meaning evidence, and is a possible reference to her being a goddess of fate, a weaver, so he could find his way back out of the maze. She told him to go forward, down, always down, never left or right. Then she led him to the labyrinth. He tied the string to a doorpost, followed her instructions carefully, and reached the heart of the maze and the sleeping Minotaur. A murderous fight ensued, and Theseus was able to kill the monster. Guided by Ariadne's string, he found his way out of the labyrinth, back into the light of day, and escaped with her, her sister Phaedra, and the 14 Athenian youths. There are different versions of the legend, but all tell that the hero could not keep his princess. He lost her. In most versions to the god Dionysus, she's not meant to be a constant companion. Ariadne is a soul guide, a psychopathos. She sends the hero on his quest and helps him to overcome obstacles, helps him to defeat the baser side of man's nature. Job done, she leaves him or he loses her to the divine sphere. The story behind the story is less obvious. In a spiritual sense, without Ariadne, Theseus would never have come to the battle with the man-devouring unholy mix of man and beast. Her words encourage him to go straight on, to not deviate from his chosen path, to conquer the labyrinth by strength of will and courage. What we see in this mythical tale is a 100 degrees change in spiritual belief, brought on by successive wave of immigrating patriarchal warlike tribes, confronting a highly sophisticated culture. Somehow, the gods and rituals of that culture, that was many steps above those tribes on the ladder of civilization, had to be assimilated into their own system. The bull, a sacred animal to the Minoans, and the famous and often depicted ball dances, were turned into a fight for life against chthonic forces. And so the dancing ground of the goddess, a place meant to honor her and celebrating her name, became a dark and dangerous place, containing what man wished to shut away from daylight. Next slide. Depictions of the labyrinth on coins, pottery, mural paintings, and floor mosaics show it to be unicursal, one way to the center. Literary evidence, on the contrary, speaks of a real maze, with many paths and dead ends, as the prison of the Minotaur, making it impossible for it to get out. In Roman times, unicursal labyrinths appeared at the entrances to buildings, may be used apotropaic to keep malevolent spirits outside, may be also symbolic for being on the right path. And this is definitely so in Christian belief. This aspect of the labyrinth is embraced wholeheartedly by the new religion. The labyrinth becomes the path to Jerusalem, the path to salvation and enlightenment. Walking it, praying and meditating, or crawling on one's knees in penance is the equivalent of a pilgrimage, a journey into self and the soul. The oldest surviving Christian example is from the Basilica of Reparatus in Tingitana, in Algeria, built in the year 324 Common Era. The inscription in the middle of the words Sancta Ecclesia over and over. Church is the salvation. Next. And probably the most famous one nowadays is the Labyrinth in the Cathedral of Chartres in France, built in the early 13th century. With the disastrous course the Crusades had taken, pilgrimage to Jerusalem was no longer feasible. And this and 6 other labyrinths in Europe were designated as substitutes. Its design is full of symbolism, mathematics, and sacred geometry. The rose at the center, representing the Virgin Mary, who is the patron saint of the cathedral. Ariadne, the Most Holy, has come full circle. The circle represents heaven, God, and spirit. It also symbolizes wholeness, Alpha and Omega, eternity, no beginning or end. The center of the circle is geometrically the point of perfect balance, also called the still point. The square that is incorporated into the floor plan along the labyrinth at Chartres Cathedral represents earth, man, and matter. The 4 quadrants of the labyrinth represent the seasons and the cardinal points of north, south, east, west. The lunations around the edge correspond then to the number of days in a lunar cycle. 20.5 per quadrant. And if the great west rose window, it looks a little bit like the one in Notre Dame, but shows a picture of the Last Judgment. If it were to be folded down, it would cover the labyrinth exactly. This incredible feat of architecture is meant to show the link between our journey of life and the Last Judgment, which is the theme of the window. It also represents the concept of divine light illuminating our journey through life. Next, please. The word labyrinthos itself is presumably of pre-Greek origin, evidenced by the combination "and-the", which is very uncommon in Indo-European languages, except in English. As an aside, my own hometown's Rome name, Vindobona, is another example, in this case the combination "and-the". Historians would dearly love to know which language these words belong to, because it seems to have been very widespread. Hobby horse of mine, I digress, sorry. It was theorized by Arthur Evans, the excavator of Knossos, that the labyrinth was named after the labrys, a Lydian word for the double-bladed axe, meaning something like house of the double axe. The Minoan labrys was never a weapon, but a sacred symbol, held only by women figures. We do not know how the Minoans named this symbol. We have only Plutarch as a source for that word, who says that the Lydians called this form of an ex-labrys. That's a little bit thin to go on. Evans' theory is meanwhile rather discredited, as labrys symbols were found in not just one set of ruins, but in many of the Cretan palaces, in wall paintings and as small jewelry. This nice one. I'd like to have it. Next slide, please. In Mycenaean Greek, we have linear B inscriptions giving the syllables da, pu, ri, to. Yeah. Actually. Which is obviously a loan word from Minoan tu pure. I did not include the linear E tablet, since that's still, after all these years, rather speculative. But these words were never associated with palace-like structures like Knossos, but with underground caverns, fitting much better the antique descriptions we have by Hesiod, Plinius, and others. Sadly, the enthusiasm of antiquarians and archaeologists in the 19th and 20th century widely ignored the literary evidence in this case. Otherwise, they would never have associated the ruins of Knossos with the labyrinth. That's just not what it is. That's not underground, not in the least. Believe me, I've been there. So, we have tu pure, da purito, and a sound shift from delta to lambda, at least in writing, because we don't know speaking Mycenaean. How? Old Greek labyrinthos, Latinized labyrinthus. Next slide, please. A certain place near Crete's southern coast that was in medieval and modern times named Labyrinthos by the locals is a possible site of the legendary labyrinth. The caves near Gotin, the old capital of Crete, near modern-day Matala. You know hippie Matala. They lived in those caves in those times. Now it's, by special permission, you can visit. It consists of a series of interlinked underground caves, which are of natural origin, but have been reworked by human architects and artists with columns, paintings, and inscriptions. Last slide, please. And another site has recently come to light, last year, that is a rather spectacular discovery. A new radar installation for the airport was planned on a hill near Papura Hill, for Crete modern-day capital for the airport, and preliminary excavations because they take their construction building in Greece, they take it very seriously. Before they start to build, they take a look if there's something down there. Mostly there is. And preliminary excavations on the chosen building site discovered a structure made of 8 circular stone rings with a diameter of 48 meters around the central circular area with a diameter of 15 meters and 2 main entrances, southwest and northeast. Rings a bell? Solstice? No? Nothing? It has been in use from around 2000 before Common Era until the end of the Minoan civilization around 1450, as evidenced by pottery shards. Those pottery shards, if we hadn't those, we never had a clue how to date things. Those shards hint at possible rituals, offerings or celebrations, including much consumption of wine, which would fit perfectly to the image of Ariadne's dancing ground. Research is still going on, and it will be some time until final findings will be published, and I'm waiting for them. Ariadne's dancing ground is a small line in the Ilias. I have the exact citation somewhere. I think it's 18 or something, where the shield of Achilles is described. And there, Homer, for whatever reason, mentions Ariadne and the dancing ground. So, it has nothing to do with the Minotaur legend. It has, or at least not much, it has nothing to do with a Cretan palace, which never was a palace, as we know now. And it's still, in its way, a mystery. The only thing about the labyrinth that's probably been true is that it's always a symbol for the journey. And which journey is for the one to decide who puts his foot in. So be guided by Ariadne.
Marion, I will stop you there for a moment, and I will ask our audience here if they have questions for you, if that's all right. Yeah? So do you have any question you would like to ask?
I would like to ask if there is a difference between this labyrinth or like just the spiral, you know, the spiral of it. Or is it the same but more like cultural difference? Like the spiral is more Celtic.
The difference between the labyrinth, the unicursal labyrinth, and the spiral is non-existent. It's one way out, one way in, one way out. It's just, and as you've seen in the structure on Papura Hill, it's also circular. Yeah? Literary evidence and pictographical evidence show two completely different things. Literary evidence was a real maze, like dead ends, and you can't get through, and you get stuck, and blah, you get lost. And almost every known depiction shows a unicursal labyrinth, like a spiral going inwards, going outwards. Whatever happened in between, we like to know, but we don't, to be honest.
Thank you. Another one? Anything else? Okay, if not, yeah.
So, do you think there is a real maze somewhere? The real maze from the myth?
Oh, if you go through the caves of Gortin, well, nowadays it's not that bad because you have electric lighting and you have your smartphone in the worst case. But it could quite possibly be, you know, there's strong evidence that these caves were in Neolithic times used for living in, just living in. Like caves all over the world. And maybe there's a little bit of remembrance. So people, at a certain point, people left the shelter of those caves to live above ground, so to say, but they remember them. And in their original, as attested by the oldest written sources, it was nothing to fear of. It was a place, maybe after they left those caves, they used them for ancestor worship. And so they became something special, a special place, something holy, something you go and celebrate or do offerings or meditate or pray or whatever. Huh? And somehow, on the course, on the upheavals, which have been very massive, the complete change from the pre-Indo-European populace to the Indo-European populace, somewhere there, the meaning changed. But some people still remember the caves as a place of shelter. But it was dangerous, dark, no light. The Greeks had a massive emphasis on sunlight, light itself, and there was never light in those caves. So, maybe antipathy? I don't know. But it has to be something that is deeply rooted in their emotional setup.
Maybe I have one last question. I would never ask myself to go just to search for this site. I will never ask the question, where is the real maze, where is this maze situated, because I will never consider it to be a real site in the first place. How did this question come around?
Well, to be a real size, people doubted the existence of Troya.
Yeah.
So, if you take one piece of Homer or his contemporaries or Hesiod, if you take one piece seriously, there is no reason not to take another piece. Okay. And this place, the caves of Gortyn, were called by Cretans Labyrinthos until, well, 20th century. The old guys living around Matala, they still, don't go in there, it's dangerous. Yeah, falling stones. Other kind of danger, no Minotaurs, definitely not even a goat.
Another question? If not, let me thank you once again for your lecture. Please